Starting take two in 3, 2, 1, go! Well, yeah. Hey, folks. How, are you? Welcome to Take Two right here on the Voices on the Net Network. We're back. Ronnie and I are here for you. Yet another episode of the program. We've got a great one for each and every one of you tuned in. Hey, Ronnie, how are you over there?
I'm doing great. Remember that Groundhog movie?
Yes, I do.
I already dreamt I've done this show today already.
Ah, yeah, the infamous dream sequence. We'll talk more about that in just a bit. Right after, of course, Ronnie makes it official. She does that at the beginning of every episode. Can't forget about that. That's a trend, a tradition here. So we'll get into everything. You don't want to go anywhere because, well, it's take two, obviously. But before we get into everything, if all of you tuned in right now would be so kind as the great listeners tuned into this great network, please visit www.vonthenet.com. That is right, www.vonthenet.com, the Voices on the Net Network's website, where you will be able to find more information pertaining to the Voices on the Net Network. All you need to do is go right up to the top of the website where you will see the About link. You click it. Then you'll arrive at a web page providing you everything you need to know regarding the network in thorough detail. You can also check out podcasts of any of the episodes from any of the shows, and they are all available on demand for and at your very own convenience. A great website full of content. You really want to check it out, and it is the official Voices on the Net Network site at www.vonthenet.com. All right, so we're here. Ronnie and I are here to grace all of your presence. Clearly, you're here too to grace our presence. Well, it's cooperative, in other words. But we've got a great show, Ronnie. But we cannot start. We can't start until you make it official. So, Ronnie, check what episode we're at. I know you probably already know, but just to make sure.
Yeah, just to make sure, I did double check, and yes, we are on episode 272.
Yeah, we are. Episode 272. Even I knew that before Ronnie even uttered the words. But yeah, we are at episode number 272. Glad to be here. And so tell us more about this dream sequence. You had a dream that you already did the show. In other words, you had a dream you already did episode number 272 of the show.
Yeah, I dreamt that I had gotten up to my normal shower. Only thing was different about this dream, which is really weird, is instead of walking dogs, somehow I was walking a cat that I don't have anymore.
Okay.
And got into my studio, got ready for the show. We did the show, and then of course, the oh my god alarm went off. The one that you hit and forget that it only does it 3 times. You hit the 4th time, it's not going to go off for you.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So now I'm redoing the show.
Okay, so you were walking your dead cat, in other words.
Yeah, in other words, yeah.
That happens a lot in dreams. You notice that. The dead animals, the dead people, those that were once in your life that are unfortunately no longer in your life anymore tend to come back. Yeah. Not necessarily haunt you, but they tend to come back in your dreams. After my aunt passed, and then my great aunt passed, and so forth, it was there were numerous recurring dreams of them, they were vivid. They were right there, and I'm sure those of you tuned in right now exactly know what I'm talking about. That if you have you've had to go through deaths in the family, even close friends for that matter, you've noticed that when you dream of them, they're very vivid, and I think dream experts. And I talked to a dream expert on my show, a session with JJ, and we brought up how recurring dreams occur. We talked about all kinds of different events and experiences and so forth. And he did bring up those that have died recently, where you do dream of those, whether they're animals or people. Mm-hmm. Really,
I used to have dreams of my brother. Yeah, he's no longer here too. It was just like he was like really right there.
Yeah,
it's just strange because you wake up and you realize, that was just a dream. But you feel better. I did because I got to see him.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. It actually, one of the dreams I had after my great aunt passed, it seemed like she was haunting me, but she wasn't. Obviously, it seemed as she was. She was like she was floating. She wasn't walking. She was floating, and anywhere I would go, she would be there, floating, following me. And that sounds creepy, actually. No matter where you go, she's like over your shoulder, floating, not walking, floating. So it's like a ghost. So it was kind of scary, but she was so vivid as she was when she was alive. It was the craziest thing in the world. But I've had great dreams though that had to do with me being with her back when I was younger, and you remember, of course, what you can, and it's your subconscious clearly. But dreams are very, very thorough. I mean, meticulous. That you don't know where some of them come from. Some people believe that some dreams have to do with what had occurred in the afterlife, if you believe in that, or osmosis. Not osmosis. What's the word I'm looking for? Where you haven't experienced it in your life, but in a past life. I don't know what the word I'm trying to think of here, but anyhow, some people believe that, and I talked to the dream expert about that too. And you wonder sometimes, because you don't remember some of them. You don't remember anything regarding the dreams you're having, but you're having them, and some of them are so surreal. Some of them are so odd and crazy that they could only happen either in a movie or in a dream.
Right.
Right?
Just like me getting up. I thought I had already done the show. Everything was fine until the cat came into the picture. My cat's name was Bindi. So that's just weird. It just struck me as odd. So here I am. I'm doing it again, like Groundhog Day.
Yeah. No, I totally know what you're talking about. Somebody in the chat room brought it up. Regression dreaming. That's what it's called. Thank you. Thank you to the chatter. To the listener that brought that up. That was bothering me. I'm like, what the heck is it called? But thank you. But yeah, it's not what we're going to be going into during the open. I wanted to get that out. I wanted to hear what Ronnie's experience walking her dead cat. Well, I didn't know that until after the fact. But yes, she did have a dream that she already did the show. So apparently we're on episode number 273 now, not 272.
Yeah, really.
Right? No, we are on episode number 272. Deja vu, thank you. They're all coming out now. The listeners are helping me where you're actually supposed to be helping me. So you two are now after those two that just helped me. They're gonna have to take your place. I'm sorry, Ronnie.
Okay.
I'm sorry, they're gonna have to take your place. No, I'm just kidding. But thank you to the listeners, Saba, for helping me. Yeah, regression dreaming and deja vu moments. Yes, where you think you had something, something had occurred in a previous life, not in your real life, but in a previous life. Or some people believe that. All right, we got to move into the opening item on this itinerary. You would think what we were just discussing was the opening itinerary or the opening item, but that was not the case. So we'll go a little bit into this here, and I can tell you this occurs more times than you think originally. I spent a couple of hours looking up different articles, comments from people, what they have experienced, their personal experiences. You have a job interview, correct? And you're out of college. You're looking for a job, resumes, boom, boom, boom. You go for your job interview here. You go for your job interview there. Your parents intertwine, or they intervene. They get involved. Where is the line drawn? Where is the line drawn when it comes to job interviews? How far should your mommy and your daddy go to help their child, in other words, with their job interview? Or should they step back altogether, let you be independent? After all, you spent 4 years in college. You should be independent. You should be able to handle things on your own. Where is the line drawn? Where do you think the line is drawn, and have you ever had this problem before?
Once. I think that the line is drawn. I mean, I could understand a parent, mine did, helped fill out the resume.
Right.
Helped me prepare as to what was going to happen because I was scared to death. It was my first job interview. Scared to death. I didn't know how to act. I had no. It was almost like I was going to be facing the death squad interrogation style.
Right.
Had no idea what was going to happen. But my mom would sit there. She would help me. This is what's going to happen. They're going to ask you this, ask you that. It's not like a truth or dare type thing that I thought it was. But that's, I think, is what the parent can do with their child, or even they're not really a child. I mean, they're probably a student, graduate,
Right, but their child.
But yeah, but they're going to help them before they go to the job interview. I mean, once your foot is out the door and on the way into the next door to go for the job interview, there should be no parents, no brother, no sister, no uncle, no friends, no nothing. Just you. Your employer is looking for someone who's independent, can actually work by themselves, lead themselves, direct themselves, be able to direct even a team if it's that type of a job. So that's, I think, is where the parent ends, is during the preparation process. But once that foot's out the door, that's it. You're on your own, and it's time to, take those ropes.
Right. I was looking up a few comments here, and I was actually going to poll some of my friends. I didn't have the chance to do so. I was going to actually ask some of my friends to see to hear their experiences and so forth, but I did check out quite a few comments, and how many parents that actually call the managers, call the places, and they will kiss ass. They'll kiss ass. They'll say, "Listen, you have to hire my son. Listen, you have to hire my daughter." They think going that extra mile is actually helping their child. They think going the extra mile, they're being proactive themselves by helping their child out, when really they're not helping their child out. The manager doesn't want to see that because they want their potential candidate, their potential employee, to be able to think on their own, to be able to do things on their own. If they still need, they're still hanging on to their, parent's sack, it's going to look bad for the candidate, the child. The person.
If I was the manager, it'd be a turnoff for me because who am I hiring, the kid or the parent?
Exactly.
Because that means that I can make a wrong decision, or I am the one in charge. I'm the manager,
right?
And I say something wrong to the child, or the kid thinks that it is, and mommy and daddy's going to come in there and try and confront me. I'm not hiring the parent. I'm hiring, supposedly the kid, which really isn't a kid. I mean, they're at 18. I mean, when I had my first job was at 13 years of age.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is where your preparation time is. That's where your practice time is. Both the parent and the child. You're teaching them the responsibility. That should already be done and over with by the time you reach 18.
Right.
Because when you're in college, they still give you that experience during your college career. The college actually helps out with that, the training you, getting you prepared, how to conduct yourself during an interview, that sort of thing. So they should already be prepared for that. But I think, that parents can reinforce that if their child is nervous, because, I was, and I still would be today nervous. I would expect that pep talk, but not in front of the employer.
Right, well, there was some conducted research that went into just some interview experiences here. Executives at Office Team, a staffing service specializing in the placement of administrative professionals, asked employers to share their best or worst examples of meddling parents. Yes. Here, according to an Office Team press release, are some of the responses. Here we go. We'll start off with number one here. One parent wanted to sit in during the interview. That's common knowledge. We were just talking about something similar to that. Or not really, but somebody calling in. So in other words, one parent asking to sit in the interview. So you can't have, or your child can't, see, I had a deja vu moment right there. Didn't even happen, but I assumed it did. One parent wanting to sit in during their child's interview. That doesn't show anything. It may, actually, I don't want to say that. While I probably would. Well, I wouldn't recommend it. It doesn't necessarily automatically make you think that somebody isn't independent if they have their parents sitting there, or does it? If you think about it, if they can think on their own, they don't have to necessarily have their parent answering for them. They could answer all of the questions. The parent sitting in, but is this kind of poor rapport in terms of what the manager's looking for in a potential candidate, even if the parent's sitting there shutting their mouth? If you think about it,
because you're looking. First impressions mean a lot. that would be a negative impression from on the manager.
Yeah. How about number 2 here? A parent called a politician to push this manager to hire his son. Yeah. A parent calls a politician, goes the distance to call a politician because apparently the parent can't politic very well. Calls a politician, feels, oh, you know what, I'm going to go a step further here. Call a politician, they can speak well. Heck, they know how to lie too, and so forth. Push the manager to hire their son. Nah, I wouldn't do that if I were you. No.
It would not work for me either. Not a chance. You try and push me to do something as far as my job is concerned. It's not going to fly.
No. And then compounded with the fact that the manager might be liberal and it's a conservative politician calling, then you definitely don't have any chance.
None.
Any chance whatsoever of becoming an employee at that job. You definitely
better chance at a hung jury.
Yeah, exactly. So I wouldn't do that if I were you. Number 3, a mother submitted her daughter's resume on her behalf. Now this is where the line is drawn here, because when I say that, I mention you submit your own resumes, but you could have your parents help you out. I actually had a job search expert on my show a couple of times talking about resumes and so forth, and where we were talking about having people help you. After all, this job search expert helps people. What's the difference between having a parent or a job search expert helping you with your resume? So this is where the line is drawn. You could ask for help from your parents because clearly they've been around longer than you have. They would know exactly, perhaps know exactly what to put on their resume or what not to put on a resume, but don't have them hand them in, because more than likely you're going to hand them in to potential employers online, or you may even go directly to the place. You want your parent to go to the place with you to hand the resume in. Luckily, most of it is done online, so if your parent does hand it in, well, how are they going to know? But still, be proactive yourself, and I would do it on your own terms.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. This is probably maybe one of them I would accept, to the point of leaving the house. As far as putting it online, things like that, that's a whole different ball game. But the parents shouldn't be going anywhere near that place of business that you're wanting to be hired at. You're trying to give them an impression that you are in charge, that you are an adult and capable of performing the job that you're wanting to hire. So no, I wouldn't let a parent even drop off the resume.
What about parents here? This is number 4. Parents that once worked at the company that their child is now hoping to work for. We'll say they were a manager or an assistant manager or a supervisor, whomever, whatever. A parent came by, this is the 4th one here. A parent came by my desk, the manager's desk, and told me, the manager, that he expected his daughter to get preference for a position since he was a manager at that company. Well, the thing is, now, while I'm not going to say it doesn't help, because clearly if you were once a manager, clearly the name lies, your successes don't necessarily carry over to your child's successes. Even though you had great success, you spent 10 to 15 years at the company, great, good for you, but now it's your son or your daughter's turn to now make create a reputation for themselves. More than likely, the company knew you were once a manager, and more than likely, if they noticed the last name, they'll say, "Hey, was your father a manager here at one point?" If the father or the mother or whomever played a very prominent role in that company, more than likely, their reputation will speak for themselves.
Mm-hmm. But most companies will not hire family members. This is one of the big reasons why. It's because of the influence. How do you know what happens if that parent actually had a bad negative, just that negative whole environment when they were working there? That would also influence what they think about the child, both negative and positive, and what could happen in that situation. So I wouldn't, as a parent, recommend that my child be hired there, because that's an influence on them. I want them to figure out on their own. And I think that the managers that are hiring these people want the same thing. They're looking for that one person. You've got to stand out, and having mommy with you or daddy with you is definitely going to stand out, but not in the correct way.
Right. But this is another thing, because family members, say you're talking about really your extreme family or your extreme close family, maybe uncles and aunts and so forth don't necessarily count, but it would have to be your mother, your father, your siblings even, and that is where it gets kind of complicated because you're paying the price of whomever maybe developed a negative reputation there if you're trying to get a job there. So I've noticed there are jobs that have gotten rid of the conflict of interest notation in the itinerary because of that. It's not the son's fault. It's not the daughter's fault that their mother or their father made an ass of themselves. But that's another way, the fourth one here, just wanted to bring that up. Don't want to get into a full-fledged debate or discussion on that, but yes, a parent did come by one manager's desk bringing up that they were a manager and hoping that that would get their daughter or their son's foot in the door. Number 5, a mother called to ask how her child did in the job interview. Well, why wouldn't you just ask your child?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you just ask your son or your daughter here? Why are you going to call your job or the job the place of employment or wherever and ask the manager?
Yeah, you would want to do. Why would you ask the manager how it went? As soon as the child came home, isn't that the first thing you ask? How'd it go?
Right.
You don't call the manager. You want to know what they thought, what your child thought about the interview, what they the vibes they got. Did they feel it went well? Was there something that needed to be, changed, altered, maybe some advice given at that point in time? But to call the interviewer, oh, no.
No. Even worse off, a manager stated, quote, a parent called to find out why we did not hire her son and why we felt he was not qualified. I guess the reason I say worse off here because now the son has absolutely no chance of ever working there probably. Whereas if the mother or father didn't call, maybe they'd have another chance down the line if they're more qualified. Clearly, they weren't qualified at the time. Doesn't mean they're not going to be qualified 3 months down the road or a year down the road.
Right. What's worse, managers talk. So it's just not that business. It's other businesses the manager is acquainted with because managers talk to other people within the same business and compare notes.
Right.
And if that is a negative influence there and this is what they found out, you were going to be known with the other company. So I wouldn't advise that either. So that kind of shuts the door basically on a whole entire unit of where you live.
Absolutely. Just some of the experiences managers have had with parents calling or just basically getting involved with their child's interview processes. And somebody in the chat room said, very weird parents. I guess, it would be a little over the top here. All right,
the umbilical cord.
There you go. Absolutely, yes. Now stop sucking the sack, literally. Get away from it, man. That sounded so wrong, I know. All right, let's get into the associations. We're going to get into Ronnie's Stamp of Reparation, too, in a moment. We're going to get into the associations first, obviously. But before we do so, it is time to thank our sponsor. Yeah, this portion of the 272nd, that's it, episode of Take Two is brought to you by Audible.com. And we, thank Audible for their generous support of the Take Two program as well as the Voices on the Net Network. Now, listen up. You guys and gals are going to want to listen up because we've got a great deal. Ronnie and I have a great deal for all of you, and you don't have to spend a dime either. So you want to stay tuned and listen to what it's all about. Audible is home to over 85,000 audiobooks and counting. Always new books being added to the service. Always. Really the premier service on the internet. The greatest. I'm telling you the truth. The thing is, the auditory experience is one to try it if you haven't ever tried it out. Because more than likely, you love watching movies, or you like watching TV shows, or you like listening to music or your favorite talk shows, whether it's on a computer or an MP3 player, right? Well, with Audible, rather than reading a book traditionally, you're listening to somebody read to you. And no, it's not an ebook, because an ebook is simply the traditional reading experience only via a digital device. The auditory experience, Audible.com in other words, gives you what you have experienced, what you may have experienced when you were a kid, when your mother and your father read to you, when you were trying to go to sleep. You could enjoy your book while relaxing, laying down in bed, on a couch, in your chair, relax. Enjoy your book. And it's not a monotonous experience either. There are some actual prominent names that voice these books that add comedic value to the books, the dramatic feel, so much more. You got to try it out. You don't have to or you don't have to. No risk whatsoever. You don't waste anything. There's no money to put up front. audibletrial.com/take2 is the link to take advantage of the 1 free audiobook and the 14-day free trial that you will receive from audible.com. audibletrial.com/take2. Take advantage of this offer. You will be glad you did. Ronnie and I are confident that you will love it. audibletrial.com/take2. As always, we thank Audible for their support of Take Two as well as the voices on the Net Network. All right, so we've got some associations here before heading into your stamp. You want to start us off with one over there, Ronnie?
Sure. You know, the tornado outbreak that we've had basically since April, every week we've got a new outbreak going on.
Right.
However, in the month of April, there were 272 people that lost their lives in the South due to the multiple tornadoes that we had at that point in time. However, in the month of May thus far, which is not over yet, 270 people have died.
That's horrifying.
We want to round that back out because it comes full circle. Interesting enough that on the tornado warnings, when they issue it, they give them a number. 272 tornado warnings were issued, and this 272nd tornado warning actually occurred in Joplin.
Wow. So 272 deaths occurred from the tornado outbreak back in, 99 or 90?
In April of this year, 2011.
2011, okay. And it happened that in Joplin, the 272nd tornado warning occurred, too.
The season.
Wow, isn't that ironic? Oof.
I know.
It's horrifying what's occurring. It really is. It is horrifying, and you're the one that loves these things. They're just, it's scary, is what it is.
It is scary.
And you saw the
scary.
videos on these websites online showing the destruction that these things are doing, causing, and how massive they are. It's like watching Twister all over again, really.
Yes.
It's.
I mean, it's interesting to watch to watch what Mother Nature can do and what it has to offer.
Yeah.
And we can't actually stop it, but to alert people, that's the good thing about tornado chasers,
absolutely.
because we warn and try to save the communities as much as possible.
Oh, I thought you were going to say it's interesting to see the devastation. I was about to say, no. It's definitely not interesting.
That's not interesting.
But yeah, the storm chasers, they put their lives on the line, and I don't want you to put your life on the line because you're my co-host here. That's what I'm trying to say. All right. Well, yeah, that's. I was actually going to use that association there, but you took that, and that's cool. That's fine. Appreciate your association. I've got one though. Don't worry. Bugatti Veyron, watch out, because the 2011 Hennessy Venom GT is coming after you. Yeah, that is right. We know how fast the Bugatti Veyron runs. Well, we have one that runs 267 miles an hour. We have one that runs 268 miles an hour. How many miles an hour do you think the Hennessy Venom GT runs, Ronnie?
How about 272 miles?
Yeah, 272 miles an hour. It runs, get this, an LS9 V8 supercharged engine, which is pretty powerful. You don't need a V12 just to run a car. What really will make your drool is the amount of horsepower in this monster. 1,200 horsepower with an LS9 V8 supercharged engine. Try that on for size, Bugatti Veyron. Now that's powerful. I'm no car expert, and I'll tell you, that's powerful right there. 272 miles an hour it goes. Listen to this, folks. Listen to some of the stats. The Venom GT, the Hennessy Venom GT can do 0 to 60 miles an hour per sprint, I'm talking about, in 2.4 seconds. 2.4 seconds. Reaches 200 miles an hour in 14.3 seconds and hits, of course, the top speed of 272 miles per hour. That's a fast car.
Wow.
Yeah. It's amazing how
I can just see your
fast they
face.
go.
You drive it as fast as you can. You know how you have the bulldogs when their head is out the window?
Yep.
Your face is going in behind you.
Yep. It's a beautiful car, too. It really is. You're going to be spending quite a bit of money for it, though. You're going to be spending over $500,000 for it. It's about $600,000 for this baby. Yeah. So, if you're rich, more than likely you could afford it. Clearly you can. But if you're the general population, I can almost guarantee you will not be driving this car.
No.
All right. What about some funny laws over there, Ronnie? You have any for us? I know you do.
I have one that pertains to this numbered episode. This is in Ohio. Actually, it's Oxford, Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
It is the law falls under their section of Code of Ordinance, which was passed in 1984, and that year sounds funny when I read this law to you.
Right.
The title of the law is 07-272-A. It is unlawful for a woman to appear in public while she is unshaving. This includes her legs, her underarms, her arms, and her face.
Well, wouldn't it necessarily be kind of common knowledge, common sense for a woman to shave those parts of her body? However, I do want to, supposed to be. You would do it anyway, even if there wasn't a law associated with doing it or not doing it. But I guess there are some women that do not shave certain parts of their bodies.
Apparently.
I don't think there should be a law.
Huge.
Well, if you go to France, they don't shave their underarms. I don't think.
No? Germany doesn't either?
Germany doesn't either, nope. So that's society, that's culture over there.
Yeah. But don't just stay away from Oxford, because in Ohio, if you do that, it's illegal. But yet, there's no law about guys going down the sidewalk without the shirt on that also has the unshaven back that makes them look like Sasquatch.
Sasquatch.
That's not on there.
Yeah. What about another funny law? You got another one up there or no?
That's the only one that pertains to this. You know, some of these funny laws are getting kind of hard to find that pertains to certain episodes because they'll change the law. So when it pertains to an episode, the next thing you know, it's been revised. Now it no longer exists.
Very cool. All right, time for Ronnie's stamp of reparation on this 272nd episode of Take Two, right here on the Voices on the Net Network. I present to all of you, Miss Ronnie.
All right. How many of us, we have to keep track of our checkbooks to make sure that we are in balance, that we actually have money in the account? We can't overexpend, because if we do, the government comes after us. And this country, we are in so far deep in debt, we're never going to see the light of day, and we still need several life preservers to even get halfway off the ground to find out what's going on with our government. How would you like to know that they're really spending bad on all of our money? Not that we already didn't know that, but now the evidence is coming out as to what our government is actually spending our tax dollars on that we ourselves do not reach any benefits for. It's kind of like we already knew that. You should have just handed me the money and I could have given you the answers. Some of the things the government has done with our money. They spent $2 million to analyze, get this, to find out this type of an answer. 38 million photos on Flickr. Then compared them against the social networking sites just to find out that, there are people in this country that actually go to the same place at the same time and put our pictures out there. Now, what kind of evidence, what does this help us for? To know that, oh my gosh, we were at the same place as somebody else was. $2 million. This is called fraud, waste, and abuse. There is an office for that. Unfortunately, that is the office that is handing out this money. Right. They don't even turn themselves in, but we can turn somebody else in out here in America for fraud, waste, and abuse. But our government, guess what, is not one of them. Or how would you like to spend well over $1 million to find out a shrimp can actually run on a treadmill? That's really helpful to us, unless you're in the Gulf of Mexico, where maybe the oil might have helped these voracious little Croatians of being on a treadmill. $315,000 they put on there on Facebook's Farmville to see if this actually helps adult relationships.
Hey, Ronnie, you don't have to listen. If you're a regular fan, a regular listener to this show, we talk a lot about studies and how there are so many of them. You wonder how much money, if we were to add up all of the studies we've talked about on the show, if you were to add all of the costs of what it took to conduct them, we're probably now finding out $2 million to analyze 38 million photos, $315,000 to find out a shrimp can run on a treadmill. What? You add it all up, we're talking billions here, probably. I knew it was
out of debt.
I knew it was up there. I knew it was up there. I didn't know how high it was, but I know studies are conducted every day, tons of them, because that's how we find out certain information, how certain things work, why certain things are the way they are, rather than just assuming they're or opinionated. You actually find out for firsthand, for sure.
But some of this stuff is basically common sense. If it doesn't help society, it doesn't advance society.
Right.
Then why are we handing out this type of money? Because the person that's doing this study is pocketing the majority of the money, because doing this study really doesn't cost that much to perform. The subjects are usually free. That's part of the study. You ask for volunteers. So there really is there's nothing there that supports this kind of money. And for instance, this was brought up in my class a few months back. They actually spent $7.2 million to find out how fast ketchup comes out of the bottle. Is that something that, oh, come on, just shake it. That's all you need to do. How many of us do that? Tip it upside down, shake it, half it's on the wall because we forgot to put a lid on it. But no, they had to spend that kind of buku bucks while we are out here. And they've canceled programs that actually have helped people. We have a Social Security system that's going to be faltering because they're too busy taking money out of it, not putting into it.
But didn't they already know this, though? Didn't they know? And I know the common knowledgers out there, the common knowledge folks that tune into this show every show know that in order to have the ketchup come out quicker, you hit the 57 and it will fly out. So I guess they needed actual evidence as to how fast it comes out. Exactly. Wow. Yeah, I guess that would be a waste of money. I'm trying to think.
This kind of money is broad.
Right. I'm trying to think of a few. I can't. I'm trying to think of at least one good thing coming out of why you would want to know how fast ketchup comes out of a bottle. All I need to know is when hitting the 57 that my ketchup's going to come out and I'm going to enjoy it on my hamburger or cheeseburger. Yeah. That's all I need to know. That's it.
Yeah.
Wow. So
that's all. We don't even. That's what the company that Heinz puts it out there. Else they wouldn't put it. They've got bottles that they have it in. They even have squeeze bottles. Come on.
I guess it would actually. I could find one good thing here, and I would assume that Heinz would already know this, or any ketchup manufacturer, how quick it would take. But I guess this would kind of help ketchup companies. I'm kind of being nice here, maybe kind of. Yeah. Well, thank you for your stamp of reparation nonetheless. It was always interesting to hear what you have to say, Ronnie. We do have to go to the break on this 272nd, excuse me, the 272nd episode of Take Two right here on the Voices on the Net Network. But before we go to the break, let's see what we're going to be going into during the second segment. Yeah, that's right. Ronnie's movie report is coming up too. It is that episode, the Friday edition of the show, always. And every Friday show, we have Ronnie's stamp, also Ronnie's movie report. America's least stressed states. Yeah, there's a list here of the top 10 least stressed states, and I can tell you that one state is on there and one isn't on there. Can you guess what isn't on there and what is on there? I think you can. It has to do with Ronnie and I. So we're going to talk about this list here of America's least stressed states. Try saying that 3 times fast. Also, PayPal co-founder Peter Thiel offering 24 students $100,000 to drop out of college for 2 years to go on a business venture and, show the world what they've got. Is this a good idea or a bad idea? Do you really need college to innovate? What are the options here? Either drop out or get the $100,000 and go on a business venture. I think I'll take the $100,000. Just my opinion. What about yours? But wait, I thought college was a good thing. Well, we're going to talk about this here. Those are obviously the two options. Clearly, the 24 students are going to take the money, wouldn't you? So we're going to go into this here. We're going to dissect it a bit before heading into Ronnie's movie report, as well as the blast from the past. You're not going to want to go anywhere because Ronnie and I return right after the break. So stay tuned. Well, hey there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the second segment of this 272nd episode of the show, Take Two, right here on the, you got it, the one and only Voices on the Net Network. And, well, Ronnie and I are great, very happy to be back. Great to be here as always, and we've got a great itinerary for you all, so you're going to want to stay tuned. But before we get into everything, got to get this plug out in the open. If all of you tuned in right now would be so kind, would you please, as the greatest listeners, please visit www.theonthenet.com. That is right, the Voices on the Net Network's website, where you will be able to find more information pertaining to the network. Yep, all you have to do is go up to the top of the website where you will see an About link. Yeah, an About link. You click it. You will arrive at a web page providing you everything you need to know regarding the network and in thorough detail. Great page for those of you that are new to the program. You don't know much about the network. You want to learn more about it? Well, there's your source. You can also check out podcasts of any of the episodes from any of the shows, and they are all available on demand for and at your very own convenience. And you can check everything out by going to the following link, www.theonthenet.com. Well, hello there, Ronnie. Welcome back.
Thank you. Same to you.
Thank you. Hope you had a nice break.
Yes.
But we're ready to work again. Back to work, as we have quite a bit to talk about. So what do you say we get into the first item on the itinerary here? America's least stressed out states. Yeah. There's one state on this list that has to do with, well, one of us, and one state on that isn't on this list that has to do with us. Both of us. Well, one of us. Both. If you go back years, decades, I don't know. Yeah. But if you talk about stress, you think, well, gee, clearly the bigger cities are the places where there's more people. There's going to be more stress. Well, according to this list, I guess that is true, huh, Ronnie?
Yes, it is. I think it also has to do with the cost of living, because it's a lot cheaper to live in certain states based on location and where they are. There's more space between the people than there are in the bigger cities. The more congestion, crime, I think, is a big issue too, depending on where you're at. I think a lot of that plays into that fact. Depends on what the job aspects are there. The more jobs availability, the more able the person can change their environment and move. The cost of housing, rent, so forth. All that plays a role.
Oh, absolutely. It does. But on HuffingtonPost.com, the Gallup Group, or Gallup in other words, recently released this survey and the results of their Gallup Healthways Wellbeing Index. Well, and they found that 39.4% of the 352,840 respondents said they felt stressed, quote unquote, a lot of the day. Yeah. That's only slightly lower than last year, when 39.9% said they were that stressed out, but higher still than in 2008, when 38.8% said they were stressed. Still, the differences are quite slim, but there's still differences. And I guess the time of the year plays a major role. Say winter versus summer. Are people going to be more stressed out during the winter as opposed to the summertime? Because during the summertime, you tend to be off from work. You tend to be off from school. It's warm. You go to the beach. You go camping. You tend to relax during the summertime. Well, in the wintertime, we've got the holidays where we stress ourselves out by going shopping, and by just the holidays in general. You don't want to think of the holidays as being a stressful time, because it's supposed to be a time where you hang out with your family, your friends, the ones you love. But it's still stressful, and you can call it whatever you want. I like to call it something called Stressmas or Christmas, or if you celebrate one of the many other holidays. During the holidays, of course, you have to buy gifts, and you have to. You panic in some ways. Also, the winter weather. You're working during the winter. You're going out in the morning to find that there's 2 feet of snow on your car, and you have to go to work. So there's so many different factors that play a major role in here, that if it weren't for some of the nuisances, this number would be way lower. But we're going to talk about the least stressed states. So apparently these 10 that are on this list aren't as stressed out during the holidays or when they have to go to work or any other time of the year as, say, some of the other ones that are not on this list. Let's start with number 10 right here. And this is actually the one state, or one of the two that we're going to go into here, overall, in other words, that are associated with Ronnie and I, that is on this list. least stressed, one of it pertains to one of us, and that's Nebraska. Yeah, Nebraska's on this list at number 10. Now, Ronnie will be able to tell us more about this because she lives there, but you live there, and you clearly, I don't know if you notice that there are certain times of the year that may be more stressed than others, more stressful than others. However, on this list, you're comparing it to the other least stressed out states as compared to, say, the bigger cities are the ones that are not on this list. I would think.
Well, number one, I think we're more stressed in the winter because the snow is something that is always a big issue because, a lot of our employment is based on, the clearing of the roads. We talk about state crews that are always out there. So unemployment becomes a big issue during like the winter months. You have people unable to go to work. So I think the winter is more stressful for Nebraska. Outside of that, people are mostly, it's a great state as far as the people-wise concerned because people actually help each other. Depending on what it is, most of Nebraska is farming, except there's the two biggest cities in this state. It happens to be Lincoln and Omaha.
Right.
And that's it. Everything else is farmland, rural communities. Mm-hmm. So there's we're not packed like sardines in a can. Everybody has their own space, their own area. But we still face the same types of challenges that other cities do. I think we just do it on a different level because we're already not as stressed. You still have in these two bigger cities, you might have the traffic jams and things like that. That's an everyday thing in these cities as far as transporting to work. Other than that, that is about it for Nebraska because the unemployment isn't as high, I don't think, as anywhere else because we have the agricultural areas here.
Well, clearly you're going to have big cities, obviously. It's just when you compare them to the other big cities in the United States, they're very small cities.
Very small.
You compare Omaha to New York City, and there's no comparison.
Right.
It's just the way it is. It's just a different way of living. Now, I'm not saying your big cities are backwards and so forth, but I'm saying that it's just when you have less people and it's still a big city, more room to move. And I would think that and believe it or not, some people like you said packed like sardines. Some people like packed neighborhoods, while some people like houses that are so far apart that you need to drive to the next house. It depends what you like. And in New Jersey, there are places in New Jersey where houses, you have lots of acres of land rather than having a house right on top of one another and just rows of them. So I guess it depends what you like.
Yeah, it does. It depends on what you're used to. I lived in New Jersey, so that when here, that was a big culture change
I'm sure
for me
it was.
because out there, if you wanted to go someplace, everything was right there. You didn't have to travel a long distance. Here, complete opposite. It requires a longer transportation time as to where you're going because the towns are actually spread rather far apart. But like in New York City, they build on top of each other. Here, that does not occur.
All right. How's the crime in Nebraska? Is crime low? Is it high? And so forth?
The major crimes, like murder, that type of thing, that's low.
Okay.
Now, if you're talking about robberies, burglaries, things like that, that would be high, depending in Lincoln and Omaha. But out in the rural areas, it's hardly heard of. But when it does happen, it's a shock to those that are around you. But it happens in multiple times every so often.
Yeah.
My truck was burglarized just last week, so that doesn't happen where I'm at. So that was kind of an off the
I'm sure it was very surprising to you.
Yeah.
Actually, I have a stat here for you. Back in 2008 in Nebraska, there were 56,754 crimes reported and 68 murders during that year. 68 murders, while it's still 68 murders than you'd like to hear of, it doesn't sound like a very high number.
No.
For a state that is, Nebraska is not exactly a small state. It's pretty big. So, it doesn't seem like that much. So I guess crime is not that big of a concern. But number 10 on that list, Nebraska. These are America's 10 least stressed states by Gallup Healthways. We move on to the next one here, and we move over to Louisiana. Yep, Louisiana, and in
I'm
this.
surprised.
You're surprised. And by the way, let me go back to number 10. There's some extra stats here for Nebraska. The percent of those that are stressed out, quote unquote, throughout a lot of the day, 38.1% in Nebraska. We move to Louisiana. The percent who are stressed out a lot of the day, 38%. So not that big of a difference. But why are you surprised down in Louisiana?
Well, the past 3 years with Louisiana, they've been hit really hard as far as tragedies, the tornadoes, the floods, the loss of employment because of the Gulf War oil incident, the oil incident that they had down there. That right now they're even experiencing more floods. Unemployment's high because the businesses are washed away. I was just surprised that was on the list.
Yeah, well, clearly that would be a reason to stress out. I also know a couple of people that are from Louisiana, and they're strong as bulls down there. They tend to be, not necessarily physically, I'm talking about mentally, that they can handle a lot coming to them and they won't be stressed out. They have while they're a rough climate in terms of the weather, it's very nice. The air is very clean down there. I've heard from people that live down there. So that clearly spruces people up and so forth. And let's not forget there's a lot to do down in Louisiana. There really is. Outdoors I'm talking about. So when you're outdoors and you're talking about outdoors and sunny weather, that's going to add to a less stressed out environment, clearly. But yes, the weather and the extreme weather conditions clearly would stress anybody out. Well, just about anybody, but they're number 9 on the list here, and at 38% state they are stressed out a lot of the day, and that's out of over 350,000 respondents. So it's a lot of people, nonetheless. All right, number 8, in other words, Delaware. Percent of who are stressed out during the day, or most of the day, during this study that was conducted, over 350,000 respondents, 37.9%. 37.9% say they're stressed out a lot of the day. Delaware, small, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So clearly that plays a role in them being on the list, I'm sure. Or does size doesn't necessarily have to matter in this case, because if it's smaller, you would probably just have, the odds would be more that if you were stressed out, it wouldn't be on this list. You'd have less people, you understand? So if you have, if there's only, say, I don't know, I'm just guessing here, 1 million people in a location as compared to another place that has 10 million people, the 1 million people, if out of the 350,000 respondents, most of them were stressed out, the lower the population, the better the chances people would actually be stressed out. It just happens to be that they're not in Delaware.
Yeah, I'm not really surprised about this one, to tell you the truth, because I know that the crime there is a lot, it's differing from what you would see in the Midwest, but it's also a lot lower than what you would see on the East Coast in general, as far as these compacts. And Delaware really isn't, I have been there once, across the river there it was, but I didn't see it as being as compact than a lot of other cities that I lived in when I was on the East Coast, mainly in New Jersey though. But with Delaware, it just seemed like a different atmosphere. The people were different. Once you crossed the bridge and you went there, it was just a whole different type of atmosphere there.
I know they have a very, very, very high Methodist very high Methodist culture there, religious culture, that is. A lot of Baptists too. So you bring up how it's a different. You may be used to living in a Christian. I don't know. A lot of people in Nebraska Christian or Catholic.
Catholic.
Yeah, I know that Catholic is not even in the top 3 in Delaware. So maybe that plays a role. Maybe the different, not saying that if you're Roman Catholic or Christian, you're going to be more stressed out, but you have to assume that there are factors that play into it, whether it's political, whether it's religious, whether it's whatever. And it's just interesting to note that this state, Delaware, on the list of the top 10 least stressed states, Methodist, Baptist, Roman Catholic's not even up there, so maybe religious plays a part. I know if you're Baptist, they have a very unique religion if you're Baptist. Very unique. They're very into their religion. I know a few Baptist people that follow the Baptist religion, and it's just, wow. It's like, you ever go to a mass at a Baptist church? Ooh, a service.
Yeah.
They go crazy. And I can see that even if they're going crazy, well, they're not stressed out during those time periods, believe me. So I'm throwing a few things in here.
Good point. Very good point.
It's always good to add different factors to it. I look at certain things. For instance, most of these states on this list are Republican or run by Republican governors.
True.
Just throwing that out there. Not trying to be biased, not trying to get into a heated debate with anybody, not trying to anger anybody, but it's true. All right, number seven on the list of the top 10 least stressed states, Georgia. Percent of who are stressed out a lot of the day, 37.7% here. So what do you have to say about Georgia, Ronnie?
When I think of Georgia, I think of the southernness, the southern bells, that southern type atmosphere.
Right.
That I've never been to Georgia. I do know a few people that used to live in Georgia when they were growing up.
Right.
And they would talk about having family get-togethers. It was always huge families. One family that would encompass a whole entire area, even though they lived in different houses and so forth. But on Sundays, huge family gatherings. People in Georgia are just huge on keeping that foundation of family involved. I think that also plays a role because when you're near your family, it depends on, I guess, how great you get along with your family. You're unified, you're structured, you're founded, you have a foundation, you have a rock, and a lot of Georgians are that way.
Yeah, and then you also have Atlanta, you have Augusta, you have Columbus, you've got Savannah. Downtown Atlanta, they've got a lot to do in Atlanta, and the population is not even 500,000. I think it's well under. I think it's 400,000 something, or something along the lines of that. And it's a pretty big city too, but there's a lot to do. And we talked about how the size will, in many cases, matter. That if you have a big city, yet you have millions of people in that city, clearly it's going to have an impact. More traffic equals more stress, more headaches. So, and you bring up, of course, the South, too. And I've never been to the South, but I've heard it's just a different environment down in the South, in the southern United States. It's different than the North. It is. I'd love to visit the southern states. I really would. Yeah. But Georgia's number seven on the list of the top 10 least stressed states. Number 6 is Iowa. 6 is Iowa, and the percent of who are stressed out a lot of the day, 37.7%. Iowa, Ronnie.
I know. I live right next door to Iowa.
Yeah, you do.
Iowa is very spaced out. You think Nebraska is spaced out? No. Iowa is definitely spaced out. Towns are very far apart. Their larger cities are not even anywhere near the size of what Omaha is here, which is well over 500,000 right now. Iowa does not have those big of a cities that encompass the community. There's a lot of things to do in Iowa as far as camping, fishing, state national parks, that sort of thing. They're more of an outdoors people. They're more out with nature. A lot of farming, very huge farming community. Yep. And it's multicultural in Iowa. Compared, if you want to compare that to Nebraska, even though we live next door, you cross that river, you cross that bridge into Iowa, two completely different atmospheres, even though we're next door neighbors.
Yeah. And I actually knew somebody that lived in Cedar Rapids. And they say it's gorgeous. They say it's beautiful.
Yeah, it is.
It is. It truly is. I'm not surprised by Iowa being on that list. Number 6 was Iowa. Number 5, we go to our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., or, the District of Columbia. The percent who are stressed out a lot of the day, 36.7%. Some may be surprised.
Yeah.
So I don't want to. I was trying not to add the political spiel to it, but I have to. Some were surprised to see this one or hear of this one on the list. Well, are you surprised at all,
I'm
Ronnie?
surprised, very surprised. Number 1, our nation's capital is the highest crime rate.
That's true.
But we don't care. We're just, of course, a lot of crime is right there at the government right there. But, I am very surprised that this is on the list. Our government must not be stressed.
Yeah. Do you think by any chance that it made the list because the president's from there? Politically, I don't know. I'm just trying to throw some things out here, But yes, they're
nobody was actually polled, but maybe everybody was in jail that was out there because they're so high.
See, I'll tell you right now, Washington, D.C. is beautiful. It really is. There's a lot to see. So clearly that plays a role. There's what?
The tourism alone, I would think, would be a stressful atmosphere.
Yeah, true. But, true. Yeah, true. Good point. Number 4, South Dakota. Now, we don't really have to talk much about South Dakota or North Dakota. We know that they're going to be less stressed out over out there, and that's a good thing. There's mountains. There's camping. It's beautiful. The Dakotas, oh, my goodness. If there are 2 states I would want to visit in the United States of America, it would be these 2, North and South Dakota, both of them.
The scenery alone is calming.
Man.
I looked at pictures, and the scenery alone calms you. Let alone, can you imagine just living there? I've never been there, but I would love to go.
Never been there either. That's number 4, South Dakota. The percent who are stressed out a lot of the day, 35.5%. Number 3, clearly North Dakota. Percent of who are stressed out a lot of the day in North Dakota, which is number 3, 34.6%. Number 2, Wyoming, a big ski place. I know that. A lot of people ski over in Wyoming. I don't know if it may be the, most popular state in terms of skiing. I know it's up there.
Well, I know an attorney that's from there, very famous attorney, that happens to be Jerry Spence.
Okay.
He lives there. And he had come here when I first started school, before I actually started the college I'm at right now. And his theory was, reason why it was so relaxing that, he would come to these cities, these bigger cities like Nebraska, and notice when Nebraska was number 10, his state is number 2, that it had to do with the type of air. You're higher, the elevation, and that, like he stated that, that you were talking about the skiing, but it's more of a wide open space, the fresh air. Even the number of people might be a little bit higher than what they would be in, such as my state. They're a whole different atmosphere. Just you could breathe the fresh air. He said you wake up and you see the beautiful sceneries, the trees, the mountains, that sort of thing. That it was just a calming atmosphere where that benefits everybody if they're calm like that. Waking up, can you imagine waking up with a mountain in your backyard?
I'll tell you, I look at movies. I look at movies where they feature different states with mountains and so forth, whether it's Wyoming, whether it's the Dakotas. Yellowstone National Park from Wyoming. Beautiful. So I'm not surprised whatsoever to see that. I would actually think it would be, just from what I've heard and so forth, it would be number 1. But number 1 on this list, it's a toss-up, really. Hawaii. Now, clearly it's small. It's a place where people go to just get away, first off. Why would you want to go anywhere where it's stressed out, where it's a stressful environment? First off, when you go on vacation, aren't you trying to get away? Aren't you trying to get away from stress? So clearly, if you try, this is number 1 it has to be in the top 5 places to go to get away, to just go on vacation. So clearly, it has to be number 1, Hawaii. Yes, percent who are stressed out a lot of the day, 30.2%. So not that big of a number out of 350,000 respondents.
Yeah. If you notice, out of all those numbers, that's the only one that's separate from the lower 48.
Yeah. Hawaii. Never been, but I would love to go to Hawaii. Yes.
Just want to wear a grass skirt and drink out of a coconut.
There you go. Yeah. And you could do that in Hawaii. Yeah. Hawaii. Yes. A very popular tourism spot, but it's number 1 on the list of America's 10 least stressed cities or states. All right, we got to move into Ronnie's movie report. Yeah. It's we look forward to this portion of the show, clearly, all the time. I don't even know, to be honest with you, I don't even know what movie Ronnie went to go see. I don't. But we're going to find out in just a moment. But before we get into Ronnie's movie report, it is time to thank our sponsor. Yeah, that is right. This portion of the 272nd episode of Take Two is brought to you by Audible.com, and we thank Audible for their support of Take Two as well as the Voices on the Net network. Now listen up, folks, because Ronnie and I have one heck of a deal for you, and you don't even have to spend a dime. With over 85,000 audiobooks to choose from, we're going to offer you right now 1 free audiobook and a 14-day, 2-week free trial to browse the 85,000 plus audiobooks at Audible. In order to take advantage of this offer, you don't have to spend a dime once again. Is go to audibletrial.com/take2. Right now, audibletrial.com/take2 to take advantage of this great offer. The auditory experience in itself is something that when I first tried out an audiobook, I knew I was going to be hooked because I like listening to media. I do. I love listening to talk radio. And if you haven't already noticed, I love talking, but I also love listening to talk radio too. So listening to somebody speak to me, or in other words, auditory retainment, I tend to retain information a bit better when somebody's reading or talking to me rather than traditionally reading. When I traditionally read, I read to myself. Do you do? Do any of you do? Well, if you do or if you don't, try it out. You don't have anything to lose, no risk whatsoever. And Ronnie and I are so confident that you will love the service. You'll want to continue being a member. You'll want to pay for it. Not a lot of money whatsoever, and you'd be supporting the network as well. audibletrial.com/take2 to take advantage of this offer. Do not wait any longer. As always, we thank Audible for their generous support of Take Two as well as the Voices on the Net Network. All right, well, Ronnie, I don't even know what movie you want to go see, but we're going to find out. So what do you say, you ready for a little movie reviewing?
I'm ready.
All right, here we go, folks. Ronnie's Movie Report.
Get your tickets and popcorn ready, because it is time to take a break from the critics. It's Ronnie's Movie Report.
All right, give it to us. What did you go see?
I went to watch The Hangover Part 2.
I heard so many bad reviews about this movie.
And you're about ready to hear another one.
All right.
We had the same actors, the same exact ones. All they did was add a monkey. And I guess that they thought that was going to benefit us, the people watching the movie, and to separate it from the first Hangover 2. The first Hangover. The first Hangover, if you've missed it, well, then you're just going to, Hangover 2 is just a recertification of what happened in Hangover 1. I think what these writers did, they just threw each role on the floor and told the actors to pick up a different one other than the one that they played in the original one, and that somehow we, the watchers, the viewers, were not going to notice that it was the same transcript, the same exact scenario that went on in Hangover 1 goes on in Hangover 2. It's just an extended version, and sometimes you wish that you had a hangover when you watched it. There were periods of funny, not, outright laughter where you thought you were going to wet your pants. It was more like a funny, okay, hurry up and get this show over with. That is how I felt during the whole entire movie. You still have Phil, Stu, Alan, Doug, Mr. Chow. All of those are back from the original one. Plus, they added a monkey into who happens to be a drug dealer. That is supposed to help out the storyline. The monkey actually makes the movie, believe it or not.
Wow.
I mean, he's probably the only one that wasn't paid.
That is so not good.
It's not good. No. Stu is the one getting married this time around. Instead of being married in the States, is actually going to Thailand to be marrying his. And we hope that it's not another hooker that he has been hooked up with the past. He seemed to have a history with these type of women. But yet he doesn't want to have any bachelor party because, of course, the first one didn't go so well for his friend. Now it's his turn. And Doug, which we all know is played by Zach. Oh, my gosh, this guy is funny, but he does not bring funny to this particular movie. I think this is a big fault on this one. The same actors bring back the same characters, the same storyline, and I'm seriously hoping that there is not going to be a Hangover 3. Because I will probably have to be drunk to watch that one if they do not get the scripts right. But that's the problem with some of these movies that are repeats. When you're doing one, it goes so well, is because you put all your energy into that script.
Right.
But this one, to remake it and bring back the funny ha-ha, they did not accomplish that. The more funny ha-ha was actually the pictures at the end of the movie. It was more entertaining than the movie itself.
And I was one of the very few that thought the original Hangover was horrible. And you remember, you were shocked when you heard that.
Yeah.
I thought it was horrible. I did not enjoy it. I'm a big Wedding Crashers guy, and people tend to, even though the movies are totally different, people tend to compare the Hangover to Wedding Crashers. And Wedding Crashers, in my opinion, 50 times, 100 times funnier than the Hangover. So I could only imagine how I would feel about The Hangover Part 2, which is basically, as I've heard from critics as well as you, well, it's the same thing.
It's the same thing. If you've watched the previews, that's all there is to know. That's it.
Well, that's
nothing new,
good
the
to
same
know.
plot.
That is good to know. Thank you for your review
Yeah, I would give it a 6.
You give,
only because I should
wow, that is very generous of you.
It is generous. Only because the monkey deserves an acting award.
There you go. All right, we got to go into the blast from the past on this 272nd episode of Take Two. So what do you say, Ronnie? We take the time machine into the past. One of the many discussions we've went into. You ready to go way back?
Oh, let's go.
We're going back to 141, folks. Episode 141. That's a ways back. So here we go. Close your eyes as we delve into the past. All right, so I'm going to start things off with this one here. Quite controversial, to say the very least, but I figured it'd be interesting to go into. Anyhow, going into a factor here that every mother has a certain relationship with their daughter. Every mother has a certain relationship with their son. Whether it's a positive relationship or a negative relationship, well, that's out in the open. That's to be determined. Who knows? But the fact is, a survey, a very controversial survey, states that moms, well, are just meaner to their daughters than they are to their sons. They're more critical than they should. In many of the listeners' eyes or ears, in other words, may think, or their minds, in other words. I'm used to saying ears, I don't know. But their minds are used to maybe feeling that they're a little too harsh. The mothers may be too harsh, maybe not enough harsh on their sons as they are with their daughters. However, a survey can be turned around in so many different ways. I mean, just because it's a survey doesn't mean everyone does this. However, out of 2,500 mothers, the results were quite obvious that they were way more harsh on their daughters than they are their sons. Do you care to add your input on this regarding a survey, controversial survey, where mothers literally admitted that they view their daughters in a more negative light than their sons?
I was angry when I first read this because I was like, how can this possibly be? And, you would think that a mother appreciates her children all equally. And then you start thinking, I started thinking about when I was growing up. I'm close to my mom, but when you're growing up, it's all, I had 2 brothers. So they would get away with a lot more than I would because I was not only just the oldest, but I was also the girl. So the girls, you had a different kind of rapport with them. You were teaching them how to cook and clean and got to be the girly girl, and even though you protest. And then you think about the dating aspect. It's almost like it was okay for the guys to go out and do whatever they did. They didn't have that kind of overbearing concern of what their actions were going to be responsible for. But I had to be more responsible for my actions out there. So I was delayed in dating. They were more picky with who I went with, what my time frame was. I had always these curfews. And so that it did bring in more tension between the relationship my mom and I had growing up compared to now. Now, I don't have any kids of my own to throw that back on to see, but I do see friends that have female, male kids, and they do treat the female a little bit, I would say harsher, maybe under more strict confinement than they would the male's aspect of it. But I don't think that they love them more or is trying to dissipate some kind of a relationship in a negative manner, almost like the way that this research was done, because I think it's more of a society-based, almost a numbering system or a modeling system. We put labels on people. It's the same thing, I think, with this study is that the females we do tend to be more particular on how our female children are going to be.
Right. And you always I always bring this up because it's very true. The father of the relationship, we're talking about mothers here, but the father clearly the fathers are clearly overprotective of their daughters. Say when they're 16 years old and they're going out on their first date. You're always going to notice the father is going to put his foot down. He's going to add his 2 cents. He's going to try and intimidate the guy. Or many fathers will. Maybe not all fathers, but that's the stigma placed on fathers when it comes to girls going out on a date in general. And there you have it. Your blast from the past. Yeah, people in the chat are saying the same thing, and they agree that, more critical of the daughter over the son.
Yeah, all about reputation.
Oh, yeah. And it's just, not that it wasn't anything surprising necessarily, but you still, you like to find out some of the statistics around it. You like to find out just some of what the study's all about, in other words, which is what we went into back on episode number 141 of Take Two. You want to go back to that, you want to relive that episode, go to vonthenet.com. You can check out all of the podcasts at the website. And that's your blast from the past. And that actually concludes this 272nd episode of the show. We have to go. That's all the time we have. Another week in the bag. But we'll be back for the next episode before you even have the chance to miss us. So, and God willing. But we'll be back, we can tell you. Until then, we sadly have to say so long for now. Much love to you all. You all are great. Bye-bye, folks.
Enjoy your holiday. Goodbye.